the thing that we don't realize is that alcohol sticks around in our system and affects us in lots of ways, big and small, that we may not realize.
Hello, and welcome to Holistic Ambition, where we talk with visionary leaders who are redefining what it means to be ambitious. We cover ways you can live with more well-being, meaning, and fun in your career, business, and relationships. I'm your host, Stephanie Thoma, life coach for ambitious professionals and author of Confident Introvert. Today, we have Amanda Kuda with us. She is an alcohol-free lifestyle expert, holistic life coach, speaker, and author living, working, and playing in Austin, Texas. As a coach, Amanda helps ambitious, soul-centered women stop drinking and start manifesting the life they deserve and desire. She teaches a modern approach to personal development, self-actualization, and spiritual enlightenment through the lens of elective sobriety. Amanda's first book, Unbottled Potential, Break Up with Alcohol and Break Through to Your Best Life, hit shelves this past October. And I'm excited for us to just dive in here. So let's even start with the difference between elective sobriety and maybe the kind of sobriety that we're more familiar with in terms of attending meetings and all of that.
Totally. Yeah, that's a really important delineation because I think a lot of people get instantly turned off or afraid of the term sobriety because we have let it become in our society, and very rightfully so, something that is identified by a rock bottom or a need for recovery or a lot of hand holding. And while that path is very, very important, I'll never discount the path to needing to be alcohol free or needing to be sober. There's this new emergence of people who are wanting to be sober and wanting to have a community and some structure around that. So they are electing to be sober, void of any sort of necessary need, any sort of rock bottom. And I think it's a really interesting space that's emerging where people are choosing to kind of buck the social norm, which has always been drinking and partying and imbibing in alcohol as a way to cure our ailments, big and small. And so, yeah, it's just this trend of deciding to be sober for whatever reason resonates most with you. Typically, it's for personal development, achievement, wellness, and spiritual reasons. And I think it's just this really cool emerging, I wouldn't say trend, but for lack of a better word, trend that's starting to happen in the wellness and sobriety space.
Totally. And, you bring up how when it comes to achievement, maybe that's a reason if you want to get up early and go on a run or, work on your side project or whatever it is. But then when it comes to fun, can you talk with us about kind of the redefinition of fun?
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is something that is really important to me, especially as someone who came to my decision to stop drinking kind of earlier. I stopped drinking when I was 31, which was in the height of my social life years. And I wondered if, I maybe would have cut back on alcohol if I would have just waited and given it some time. But I really don't know because now I look around and see so many people who are my age who are still really drinking at the same rate that I was in my early 30s. And so I really worried and was concerned about this aspect of what is going to be fun. How will I figure out how to have fun? Am I going to stick out like a sore thumb? Is everyone going to hate me and reject me? Am I going to be unable to have friends, unable to date? Am I going to be personally no fun? Because so much of my carefree persona came out when alcohol was in the picture. And I had all of these subconscious worries that I just wouldn't be able to be fun or have fun without alcohol. And I think that I know that a lot of people can relate because I spent the last 6 years coaching people who are very similar. And this is always one of the chief things that they bring up is, I don't know how to have fun or how to be fun without alcohol. How will I make friends? How will I navigate my existing friendships? What will I do? And how will I find new friends? And are there even people out there who don't drink because it doesn't really look like it to me? And those are all very valid fears. So the overarching paradigm that I have when it comes to fun is that your fun, your definition of fun, what is fun to you and how you like to have fun is absolutely going to change if you choose to stop drinking. Because when you look at it, drinking is a way that you quiet your mind and you shift your way of thinking. And so what we think of as fun as a drinker typically isn't the same thing that we'd actually enjoy sober, because what we're doing is diluting our mind and making ourselves tolerate situations that normally we wouldn't actually find very stimulating. If anything, we might find it overstimulating. And so what I found when I stopped drinking is that some of the things that I did for fun, like going to clubs or concerts or bars or big rowdy social networking events where there's lots of people, that just felt disconnected. Actually, I felt like I wasn't actually making meaningful connection with anyone because you're in these environments that are loud and rowdy and difficult to hear. So you're yelling at the top of your lungs. You're not really hearing what other people are saying. And so you're not having any conversations that have depth. And on top of that, because it's noisy, there's all of this stimuli in your environment. And I found those things to actually be really overwhelming and unfulfilling. And for a while, I wondered, is there something wrong with me? And then I recognized, oh no, that thing actually just was not fun. You made it feel fun because you got drunk to tolerate it. And once I was able to shift my mindset into that, I was able to start exploring. And most people will be able to start exploring some things that are actually fun to them, some things that actually you find exhilarating and stimulating in the right way and fulfilling. And happy to kind of go down that avenue a little bit more. But I wanted to really drive home the point that most of the things that we think are fun while we're drinking are probably not that fun at all. But it feels a little humbling and confusing and confronting to realize that what we've been doing for fun for ages and ages actually isn't that exciting to us at all. And so then we're left with this void of what do we do for fun?
Yeah. And you bring up so many great points, especially when it comes to there's a little bit of overlap with, we could even go in a spiritual route right now, but when it comes to being an empath or highly sensitive, maybe drinking can really dull the senses so that you're not taking in all the information that you're bombarded with in like a club setting, for example, or, a crowded bar. And, if you're open to it, I flagged a couple of passages. I'd love to read one, particularly about joy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have our Unbottled Potential book right here.
Hooray! What a beauty.
Woohoo. I know there's some dog ears in here. Okay, so this is page, for those following along, 75. So I might sound as if I'm seeing the world through rose-colored glasses, and if I am, so be it, because it's pretty damn fantastic. By choosing to see through the eyes of joy, I'm constantly surrounded by beauty. What's more, I've created a life where I get to experience it fully. This moment is not an anomaly. I'm frequently filled with gratitude and moved to tears because this version of my life is so miraculous. And, that just illustrates so beautifully how when we're not dulling our senses and we're willing to be with actually maybe some of the shadowy stuff too, right? But, there can be an emphasis on, oh, now you have to face all the stuff that you haven't wanted to face, when really, what about all the good stuff that you've been dulling out?
Yeah.
So can you talk with us about just the richness of experience through your journey of breaking up with alcohol?
Totally. There's this beautiful quote by Brene Brown where she says, if you dull the dark, you dull the light. And I didn't really realize that until I stepped away from alcohol, because we have this fear that, oh, how will we get through the dark points in life? How will we get through the things that are strugglesome? How will we get through the things that are boring or upsetting or stressful? But the other part that we don't realize is you've been missing out on experiencing living life at its fullest, living through your most joyful moments. And when I was drinking, I was constantly, I'm someone who reads as a pretty positive person. And even back then was kind of a positive, happy-go-lucky, bringing humor to a situation type of person. But I also really saw through the eyes of pessimism quite a bit. I wasn't able to see through the eyes of positivity. I was, frequently in victim mentality, and that really kept me seeing through the eyes of joy. And when I removed alcohol from the picture, I realized that, wow, no wonder, because I had never really experienced in my years as a drinker, which was, 18 to 31 or so, maybe 17 through 31, give or take, actually real joy and happiness, because I was always a little bit dulled down. And I'll tell you what, when I finally did get to that place where alcohol was out of my system and I was able to really tap into joy, it almost felt overwhelming because it was foreign in my body. I had never really let myself embrace this feeling of being happy and feeling successful and excited. And it was kind of this, I describe it as the rock star effect, where you feel like overwhelming sense of triumph and happiness and connectedness, and it almost feels unsafe. And so some people, when they get to that point, they retract. And it's really interesting to watch clients. A lot of times it's a very joyful moment when someone will have an oopsie moment, or they'll kind of renegotiate their decision not to drink. And it's because that sense of joy, that sense of positivity is so uncomfortable and foreign when you haven't fully experienced it. It's like electrical going through your body. But as I personally, and as most of my clients step into this journey, what you can find is that you're able to hold space for that joy and it becomes expected and really beautiful in a way that it might not have been before. And so I not only was just naturally able to feel that joy more just potently, but I also started optimizing for it because I hadn't been looking for these joyful moments before. Things like, the ways that the leaves turn in the fall. I always thought it was like my dad would always want to go out on these drives, and I'm like, womp womp. I mean, that's nice, but whatever. But when I saw just natural things in the world through sober eyes, I realized, wow, this is magnificent. It's like the moment in The Wizard of Oz when everything goes from black and white to Technicolor. And I think that it's just something that we really underestimate because if you've never experienced it, you don't know that it exists. And for anyone who's listening, who is, maybe wondering, well, what could possibly be the benefits of not drinking? I don't drink that much, or I don't have a problem with alcohol. You can't even possibly fathom the amounts of joy and positivity and beauty that are available in your life that you've been missing out on just because you've been like slightly unaware.
And another thing that comes to mind for me, I know I used to give credit to alcohol for my dancing skills. I was like, oh yeah, I can dance because of this. When, I'd love for us to kind of even parlay into friendships and how those may shift or move around. And I'll just kind of start by sharing a bit of my experience. So I did dry January one year, and then I just kept going. And in my experience, I assumed everything would stay exactly the same with my friendships, when actually that had been such a big part of my social life. There was a bit of pushback where, I would have my tea at a party and I would embrace it. I wouldn't like throw it in people's faces like, look, I'm having tea, but it would be kind of obvious, I love my teacups. But anyway, and then I'd kind of go like, oh, why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? I'm like, oh, because like I just don't do that anymore. And for me, it became this massive shifting of the people that were in resonance with me from a lifestyle perspective. And, I'm sure people listening maybe have their party friends, and then maybe they have their study friends if you're in some sort of class, or, your workout friends. And then, it's kind of like, at least for me, there was a period of time where it was difficult, but when you're dedicated to your truth and connecting with your people, where it's less about lifestyle and more about soul. I wonder if you can speak with us about that through the lens of your experience.
Yeah. For most people, you will go through this period where there's like a magic quiet, a period where there's a little less socialization than there was before, because ultimately you're refining your authentic self and who you are and how you show up in the world, and how you want your values to be reflected in your friendships. And while I think that there are probably many of your friendships that will stand the test of time and that will transition and switch contexts with you, there's also going to be a lot of your friendships that simply won't, because those people were in your life for a season and that season is coming to an end. And that doesn't mean you have to cut them off or, tell them off or dump them or anything like that. I think these things just naturally, as the leaves fall off the trees, these things will transition with you. But it's really important to hold space for that and not to write people off, not to expect the worst from them, but also to hold space for the possibility of change. And so one of the things that I really recommend when you're in this special space of trying to figure out, navigate, and renegotiate your friendships is to go ahead and put yourself out there and know that because you are the one making a change, often you are going to have to be the one who puts out a little additional effort to experiment and see what works, because most people aren't going to have the conscious wherewithal to help you along the way. So because you are the one who's choosing differently, I'm always going to recommend that you are the one who extends the olive branch, as it were, and go out with your friends, see what it's like, test the waters, see what it's like to go out with your friends where they're drinking and you're not. See how you feel. I imagine most people find that you really don't dig that environment. So then I want you to start evaluating which of my friendships would I like to kind of peel off and try to nourish in a different way. So that requires you to use your creative capacity to invite them out to do new and different things that you've never done before. They're probably not going to some of your friends will, but most of them do not expect them to know what to do in this case, because this is uncharted territory for them. This is something they've never even fathomed experiencing, let alone taking the lead on. So I want you to take the lead and ask your friends out for coffee, to go to a workout class, to go on a hike with you, to go to a art gallery or whatever it is in your area that feels good. And when you're in those moments where you are socializing with that person uninhibited, in a different way than you are when you're drinking, when you're just being you, then you can really get a sense of, do this person and I really connect? And if so, then keep cultivating that relationship. But sometimes you'll find you don't connect when you're sober. And that means you probably didn't connect very well when you were drunk. You were just dulling down your conversation to a level that you both were a match. And, if I look back at some of the conversations I was having as a drinker, a lot of them were, reality TV show gossip or complaining and just like random small talk about jobs and who we were dating and whatever else. And so I think that you'll find as you start to experiment with those relationships that some of them will stand the test of time and some of them just won't jive with you anymore. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you are bad or they are bad. It just means that you're no longer a match in the friendship space. And that frees you up to go out and find other people who would be a better match for you.
Yes. And, when it comes to the people in our lives, even work and our work environments, it's really an invitation to get clear on what your most authentic expression in your life is. And actually, I'd love to pick up your book again and
Yeah.
think about your vision of success.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to hop on over to page number 162 of Unbottled Potential. So for years, my vision of professional success was not mine, but one handed to me by society. I had my sights set on having an important job where I did important things and made loads of money. I took the necessary steps to achieve this vision by earning the right degrees and securing good jobs at good companies. I realize now that my previous vision of professional success was based on a scarcity mentality, prestige, and societal norms. Climbing the corporate ladder was not my lifelong dream, but one I bought into because it was sold to me over and over as stable, sensible, and normal. This is not to say that pursuing a formal education or a traditional career path is bad or wrong, but to open space for you to redefine what professional success may look like for you. So I'd love for us to, from a professional standpoint, just when you open yourself up to aligning with the right friends, and then even dare to perhaps take a career path that is not one that you've seen laid out before. Can you talk with us about that?
Yeah. And that could even mean, maybe you decide to go back to school or you decide to quit a job that's really stable and pursue another corporate career. For me, that meant entrepreneurship. But I think that what you'll find in all areas of your life is as you buck one social norm, which is drinking, and you stop doing one thing that you just kind of like settled for and just went down a path that kind of created herd mentality, you'll start to question the other things that you've picked up as just so. And so I started drinking because that's just what people around me did. That's just what people were doing. That's just how it happened. And I also, I'm so grateful that I chose the path of college. I really learned a lot. I was a first generation college student in my family. That really was helpful for me. But I quit the majors that I was really interested in, which were much more creative, and chose practical majors because I was worried about getting a job that was going to pay me well and allow me to progress in the world. And I made so many choices based around what other people told me was good, right, popular, and monetizable. And I imagine many of you have done that too. And if by some stroke of luck, the thing that is your zone of genius also aligned with the thing that was good, right, popular, and monetizable, and you happen to get a perfect match, wow, you are in the small percentage. I was not in that percentage. Luckily, some of the things that I learned and the skills that I learned helped me. And there are a lot of things that I can do that I enjoy, but the thing that I really wanted to do, that's not the job that I got out in the world. That's not a job that was available out in the world. And so I would implore you to, as you go down this path, to really ask yourself and start to question different areas of your life, your career being one of them, and ask, did I choose this because it's what I really, really wanted to do? Is it really what brings me joy? Or is it just something I happen to be pretty good at, even though other people, I might be just as good as something else? And quite often what we find is the answer is yes, I'm good at this and I like it because I like getting pats on the back, but I'm not passionate about it. And let me be clear that you can have great success and really enjoy a job that you're good at. But if it comes to a point where it's a job that you're good at and it's super duper stressful, a lot of times that just doesn't feel good. Once you get out of the drinking culture, you start to be turned on to life in a different way. So if you have a job that, you're maybe not meant for, but it's pretty low stress for you and you make a decent amount of money, that I could make a case for, great, then use the time and energy you have to explore something else. But if you're someone like me who really, really wants to do something and get paid for something that they're passionate about, being alcohol free is a great way to, first of all, just get clarity about that thing, but also have the courage to explore it. And I think that is what a lot of people start to find on this path, is that they get a little more clear on what they want and they have the courage to go after it, which I think is really cool and really inspiring.
Yes. And, this sense of clarity, vitality. I'm curious to hear from you about, we're going over some of the positive aspects of not drinking alcohol, but what about how alcohol is detracting from someone's current life? Let's say that someone, just let's say has a bender once a month, or, can you talk with us about how it's detracting from vitality, wellness?
Yeah, totally. Now, the science around this is going to be a little wobbly because a lot of these experiments, these scientific experiments, are done on men and not women. And there is, who knows? But the most reliable studies that we know say that alcohol doesn't just poof disappear out of your system, because what you do when you drink alcohol is you retrain your body to handle things in a different way. Specifically, it changes the way your brain chemistry works. I'm sorry, I'm not using the most clear words right now. It changes your brain chemistry and it changes the way that you deal with adversity. So that's stress, challenges, anything. And so after you operate for such a long time using a shortcut to deal with stress or adversity or overwhelm or anxiety, your body starts to say, well, we don't have to learn this one. Bye. And then when you remove that habit, that habit of drinking from your lifestyle, and you still have adversity, stress, anxiousness, then you have to learn a new way to do that. So the thing that we don't realize is that alcohol sticks around in our system and affects us in lots of ways, big and small, that we may not realize. So one of those is you've untrained your brain to deal with certain experiences or to deal with them in a specific way, which is checking out. And that is a learned behavior under the habit that you need to retrain yourself in. So even though you're not feeling hungover for, every single day after the days that you're not drinking. I mean, personally, I felt hungover a lot longer than I knew. But even if you're not feeling hungover, your body is still experiencing these other repercussions because you are training your brain to act differently to stress and other things that those things happen even when alcohol is not in the picture,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, this is there's a lot of talk out there about nervous system regulation and how some people maybe, we talked earlier about maybe numbing social anxiety, certainly numbing hypersensitivity to, loud noises, being smushed, sardined in a group of people and all that stuff, that we convince ourselves that we love when maybe we don't totally love it.
Nope.
So, I know in your book, you go into five main ways to keep the nervous system regulated. So for those that are tuning in, that are like, wait, what are those 5 ways? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So there are a lot, I teach a lot of different nervous system regulation tools in the book, and I offer videos as resources for anyone who's bought the book. There's links all throughout where you can access those videos. But I want to remind you that your body naturally knows how to do these things. But if you have cheated your way through nervous system regulation by just bypassing it altogether and getting a shortcut of checking out, you're going to have a retraining period. It's no different than when I go on vacation for a few weeks and don't work out the same way. And then I go to the gym and try to do a push-up or a pull-up. And I'm like, oh, whoa, why can't I do that the same way I did before? Your muscles, your muscles, quote unquote, your spiritual, your emotional muscles have just atrophied. You just need to teach these new ways. And so, Stephanie, can you tell me the question again? I got going on a tangent.
Yeah, no worries at all. So it's the 5, and if you just want to give us a teaser, maybe just like a couple.
Oh yes, right. Emotional regulation. Yes, you got it. So one of the things that I always like to remember is that Mother Nature is typically our best therapy. So this is an absolutely free, absolutely easy way to get to emotional regulation without really having to do much yourself. Now, it does take you having a little faith that nature actually is therapy for us. And so one of the easiest ways is just go outside. Go outside, breathe fresh air, get some sunshine, put your feet on the grass or the sand or the dirt or whatever is around you, if that's available to you right now. And we often forget these very easy things. And these are things that you can do. They're free. They take no time. You don't have to learn any sort of technique. You just go outside, and that's great. These are things that often, though, we want it to be more difficult. We don't want it to be so easy. And so almost every emotional regulation technique I'm going to teach you is going to be so profoundly simple that you can't even believe that it works. So another one that I teach in the book is called havening. And there's a lot of different ways to do havening. It's going to be a little difficult for me to do it with a microphone, but if you're watching a video, you'll be able to see me. And if not, I'll explain it. Basically, you put your hands over, you cross your hands over your shoulders, just as though you're kind of giving yourself a hug or like you're a mummy. And you start to brush your hands from your shoulders down to your forearm or down to your biceps, down to your elbows, to your forearms. And you just stroke down your arms and across your body. And you do that 20 times. And that technique is going to have some really profound, just self-soothing effects. But it's so simple. It's so simple. We don't want to look stupid or feel like it could be that easy. We want complex solutions. So quite often we'll fight doing these types of things when actually that could give us more relief, better relief, more reliable relief faster than alcohol could. And so I really want to encourage you, if you're someone who is working through being alcohol free right now, that you explore some of these techniques, the simplest of which just being go outside, go for a walk, move your body, get some fresh air and sunshine, even if it's cold, a walk around the block. Just sometimes that shock to the system can be extra helpful as well.
Yeah. And I love how you emphasize that it's not about like, okay, to make up for not drinking, you got to do, this 50-step process. And then it's
Yeah.
almost the same as the relief
Yeah.
you felt back then. It's like, actually, it's easier. And it's like a
Yeah.
best kept secret. I mean, Havening, I was just feeling so soothed. I'm like,
Yes.
oh,
So
it's
nice.
like a caressing hug that you get to give
Hmm.
yourself, which is so nice.
Yeah.
And we could totally keep on going. This topic is so potent. However, we're going to leave them wanting more and begin to wrap up. So I'd love to hear from you how you define ambition.
Hmm. I think ambition is a tricky one because so often we look for an outward expression of it and what other people tell us it means to be ambitious. But I believe ambition is honing in on your dreams and doing whatever it is that is within your power to make those dreams come true, obviously in an ethical manner. So really honing in on what those dreams are and doing whatever it takes to make them come true.
Yes. And, how do you define or what does holistic ambition mean to you?
Mm-hmm. And for me, that means that you are looking for high vibrational ways to express that ambition. So, as I said, looking for any way that is practical and ethical, really looking for ways that aren't requiring you to struggle more, hustle more, ways that you can find that achieving that ambition with ease and flow to where it just feels like, of course, that thing that I wanted came into my life. So it really aligns with manifestation for me, that it's a way to become a magnet and attract the things you want rather than try to hustle more or do more to get those things to come into your life.
I love that sense of ease and attracting what you want, being sort of a clear channel in that way. And, for those that want to buy the book, those who want to
Mhm.
stay connected with you and your work, how can they do that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm everywhere on the internet at Amanda Kuda. I'm most active on Instagram. And so if you'd like to connect with me there, I love to hear from you in my DMs or just have you lurk around and absorb some of the content I share there. I also have a website and TikTok, but the book is available anywhere books are sold, but easiest to pick up on Amazon, paperback, Kindle, Audible. And I really think that if you enjoy the conversation or at least had your curiosity piqued, that you'd enjoy the approach that I take to sobriety in the book.
Absolutely. And see Unbottled Potential. Go ahead and pick up your
Yes.
copy if you have not already. And thank you so much today, Amanda, for your time and your insights. And I'd like to thank everyone at home for watching. Go ahead and consider this your invitation to subscribe to be the very first to know of the next speaker in our Holistic Ambition series. Wishing you a beautifully clear and cognizant day. Until next time.